Right now, my dad is in critical condition. Can you come right away? I'll give you the hospital's address. What? No way, I've just arrived at my vacation spot. Huh? Vacation? What are you talking about? My father is in a serious situation. When I got angry like that, my husband said something unbelievable. I mean, I'm not really involved with him, you know. What? I'm exhausted from work every day. Let me have this trip. I felt my feelings for him cooling down rapidly. Fine. Don't bother coming back then. My name is Julie, a 30-year-old housewife. I've been married to Ken for 3 years. We met at a social gathering. Being of the same age and sharing similar interests, we were drawn to each other and began to meet just the two of us. After several dates, he confessed and we started dating. He was bright and refreshing, always making me laugh. I was increasingly attracted to him. Our relationship went smoothly from there. About 2 years into our relationship, he proposed to me. My feelings for you will never change. I want to build a warm home with you. Will you marry me? Yes. I'd be honored. I immediately accepted his proposal. And so, we decided to get married. We then visited each other's parents to announce our marriage. My in-laws were very kind, and I felt relieved there wouldn't be any mistreatment. After a successful meeting between our families, we got married. Then our married life began. I quit my job to become a full-time housewife, as Ken had wanted. I worked hard at household chores, supporting him in every way. I made sure my cooking, laundry, and cleaning were top-notch. I paid special attention to our meals, ensuring a variety of dishes and different menus daily. It seemed like he was satisfied with my efforts. Your cooking is so good, it makes me want to come home early every day. I'm glad to hear that. I'll keep making delicious food. Thank you. Seeing him happy while eating made me feel joyous. I believed we would continue to live happily together. But things started to change after our daughter Mina was born. Being a new mom, I struggled with many unknowns in parenting. Sometimes, I couldn't manage household chores as I wished. Mina often woke up at night, making it hard for me to get up early and prepare Ken's lunch. Sorry, can you buy lunch today? Mina kept me up until 4 a.m. What? No lunch? I don't want to eat out. Then you should have stayed up and made lunch. What? You're just relaxing during the day, right? Sleep when I'm at work. Frustrated, Ken snatched $50 from me and left for work. I was stunned by his words. I didn't expect such a reaction. I was doing my best with parenting and household chores alone. I accepted doing household chores since I'm a housewife. But I wanted his help with parenting. There's no rule saying I should be the only one to bathe her, change diapers, or soothe her at night. However, Ken seemed to think his job was done by working, and parenting was solely my role. He couldn't accept any slack in household chores because of our child. Is this another lazy meal? What? Lazy? It's obvious. What do you mean? There's a main dish, 2 side dishes, and a soup. The main dish is weak. You used to make more substantial meals. Are you slacking off? I've told you, I'm swamped with childcare and can't spend as much time on household chores. That's just an excuse. My mom always managed, even with me and my brother. She had it harder than you with just 1 child. You're just being lazy. But I never thought he could be so insensitive. He seemed so kind and gentlemanly before marriage, but turned out to be a completely different person after having a child. As a full-time housewife with a child, and not working, I had no choice but to rely on my husband Ken's salary. I felt it was unfair, but I couldn't stand up to him, fearing that being abandoned would be the end for me. In the end, I couldn't argue back and just accepted what he said. It really infuriated me when Ken seemed pleased with himself for having the upper hand. I wanted to go back to my parents' house to relieve stress, but it was quite a distance from our home, making it hard to visit easily. This added to my frustration. If I could meet and talk with my mom during the day, it would help me let off some steam and feel more at ease. However, the distance meant I often had to endure alone. Despite this, I managed to balance childcare and household chores. Time passed, and my daughter Mina turned 3. At this age, she began to speak a lot more, and conversing with her became a way for me to take a break. Now that she started going to kindergarten, I had some time to myself, which allowed me to do housework and relax more. However, my relationship with Ken was growing colder by the year. He seemed not to want to be with me anymore and started coming home later and later. Usually, he returned around midnight, sometimes just catching the last train. He rarely ate dinner at home and barely interacted with Mina. He would come home when she was asleep and leave for work before she woke up, so they hardly saw each other. At one point, Mina even thought of Ken as just some man who was around on weekends. I felt it was bad that her own father was seen this way by his daughter. "Ken, can't you come home earlier? Mina doesn't even recognize you as her father. She asked me where her dad was and what he was doing. She tells her kindergarten teachers she doesn't have a father, and they even asked if we were divorced." Ken seemed a bit shocked by this, but unwilling to change. "I'm working late, then going out with my boss and juniors for drinks. It's all linked to my earnings, which supports our family. So, you should handle these things. That's your role as a wife and mother." In the end, he just dumped everything on me. It sounded plausible, but essentially, he didn't want to do anything. I doubted whether he was really working overtime or just out drinking. While I nodded along to his words, inside, I doubted him. It was foolish of me to have hoped for his understanding. He didn't share my sense of crisis at all. Underestimating a child can lead to a harsh backlash someday. And while Ken claimed he was working hard, our financial situation hadn't improved. If he was truly working overtime, it meant he was spending the extra money on himself, which was pointless and only beneficial to him. Ken began going out alone more often on weekends, even telling me to pack for sudden business trips. He seemed to see me more as a housekeeper. It seems like the only reason for continuing our marriage is because I take care of everything around the house. I didn't want to live just to take care of him. This rebellious feeling grew within me. But as long as we depended on Ken's salary, I couldn't just leave with Mina. So, I told Ken I wanted to work part-time during the day. Earning my own money, even a little, was important. As expected, he wasn't happy. "Huh? That's unnecessary. You just need to take care of the house as a full-time housewife. I want to save for when Mina wants to take classes or for school expenses. Of course, I'll still do the housework. Besides, you're hardly home for dinner these days. Me working during the day won't affect anything." After some thought, Ken agreed. "Just make sure you do the laundry and cleaning. That's the condition. I promise I'll manage everything properly," I assured him. This way, I convinced Ken and started working. Perhaps it was the way I phrased it. Not blaming him, but suggesting it wouldn't disrupt our current lifestyle. Ken must have realized that whether I worked during the day or not didn't matter. I immediately started looking for a job and found an office position with short hours. I was hired, much to my surprise. Working part-time and interacting with people of various ages and perspectives was a significant change for me. It widened my horizons and kept me in a better mental state. Earning my own money gave me confidence and strength. I worked hard and soon earned recognition at work. "Julie, you catch on so quickly. You're a great help. I wish you could become a full-time employee." "Yeah, Julie, aren't you interested in becoming a full-time staff member?" Well, honestly, I was very interested. But becoming a full-time employee would make it difficult to balance childcare and household chores. First off, Ken probably wouldn't approve. When I shared this with my superiors, they looked disappointed but understood. However, I made it clear that I wasn't uninterested, so maybe there'll be another chance in the future. So I decided to keep working hard and wait for the right time. Meanwhile, something concerning Ken started bothering me. I suspected he was having an affair. One day, during my lunch break at work, I went to eat at a casual Italian restaurant downtown. That's when I saw Ken leaving the restaurant with a woman I didn't know. Ken was in a suit, and the woman looked more like she was dressed for work than for leisure, so maybe they were just colleagues having lunch. This alone wasn't enough to conclude he was having an affair. But, call it a woman's intuition, I felt there was a high chance Ken was cheating with that woman. So, I decided to hire a detective agency to investigate. Maybe Ken's late nights were because he was meeting with his mistress, not staying late with his boss as he claimed. He didn't look as tired as he should have been, probably because he was enjoying his time with his mistress. While making these assumptions, I waited for the investigation results. About 2 weeks later, the results came in. Ken was indeed having an affair. And the woman was the one I had seen. I felt a strange sense of relief that my suspicions were correct. Probably because this meant I could end things with Ken. If he was cheating, he would be at a significant disadvantage in a divorce. I could claim alimony and child support. And with a job offer for a full-time position, I felt confident I could manage even if we divorced. I decided to leave Ken. But then, I got a call from my mom. "Hello, Mom, what's up?" "Julie, I'm sorry to call you out of the blue. Your dad collapsed and has been taken to the hospital." "What?" I hurriedly took Mina with me to the hospital. I hadn't visited my parents in several months and hadn't seen them since then. Hearing about my dad's sudden collapse was a shock. When I arrived at the hospital, I found my mom looking anxious. "Mom! Julie! Thank you for coming. How's Dad?" "He's undergoing treatment now. We were relaxing at home, and he collapsed when I returned from the bathroom." "I see." I patted my mother's back. She must have been shocked to witness her partner collapsing. The thought of losing my father was distressing. Just thinking about that made me feel really hurt. After a while, the doctor came out and informed us that my dad had suffered a stroke. He regained consciousness, but his condition was still precarious. Dad was admitted to the hospital. We went to his room and waited by his side as he slept. A few hours later, he slowly woke up. "Dad! Hey!" "I'm sorry for worrying you. I'm just glad you woke up." The doctor came and checked my dad's condition. He was stable for now, but there was no telling if his condition might worsen. Mina had fallen asleep, so I left her with my mom and went back to our house to get some of Dad's clothes. During this time, I sent Ken a message, informing him that my dad was seriously ill and in the hospital. Ken didn't read my message immediately, but I figured I had done my part in informing him and hurried back to my parents' house. Later, we returned to the hospital, where my mom, Mina, and I stayed with my dad through the night, hoping for his recovery. He seemed to be breathing steadily, and I thought he might get better. However, his condition worsened by midday. He was rushed to the treatment room, hooked up to numerous tubes, and treatment began. I couldn't shake the feeling that he might not make it. I tried to contact Ken again. Given that my father was in critical condition, I really wanted Ken, as his son-in-law, to be there. But I couldn't get through to him. It was Saturday, so he should have been off work. Maybe he had been out drinking till late and was now asleep. Just as I thought I couldn't rely on him, the call connected. "Hello? What's up?" "Ken, can you come to the hospital right away?" "What? The hospital? What do you mean?" "My dad's in critical condition. Can you come immediately? I'll give you the address." I was about to tell him the address when he interrupted. "What? No way, I've already arrived at my travel destination." "Travel? What are you talking about?" "Oh, didn't I tell you? Some colleagues and I planned a 2-day trip, and today's the day. I'm already here, so I can't go to the hospital." "What are you saying? My father is in a serious situation." When I got angry, Ken said something outrageous. "I mean, I'm not really involved, you know." "What?" "I'm exhausted from work every day. I deserve a break on my day off. Let me have this trip." he shouted. I felt my feelings for him cooling down rapidly. I don't care about you anymore. Don't bother coming back. I hung up and returned to my mom and daughter, where we watched over my father. Unfortunately, despite the treatment, he never regained consciousness and passed away. We were engulfed in grief. I wondered how much we cried. My mom must have been terribly shocked. She and my dad were very close. We were in a daze, unable to think about anything for a while. But we couldn't cry forever. We gathered ourselves and began making arrangements for my dad's funeral. The wake was held the next day, and the funeral the day after. Many relatives, friends, and others who admired my dad attended. Just before the funeral began, Ken showed up. Sorry. I'm late. I couldn't make it when your dad was critical. His apology seemed half-hearted. Not sincere. I confronted him as he approached. Why are you here? People who aren't related should leave. What? I'm your dad's son-in-law. Are you angry I'm late? Everyone's already here, don't get too emotional. He tried to calm me down. But I stood my ground. When I told you my dad was in critical condition and asked you to come to the hospital, you said you were on a trip and it was impossible, right? You yelled at me, saying you deserve the trip. The funeral hall buzzed with my words. Hey! Don't talk like that. I was on a work trip with colleagues. I couldn't just leave. It might have affected my work. A colleague so narrow-minded that they can't let you leave during a family emergency won't achieve much at work. Or were you really with your mistress? What? What are you talking about? Stop making baseless accusations. That's defamation. Sadly for you, I have evidence of your affair. What? I had hired a detective agency. There are lots of evidence photos in my bag. But for now, I'll show you the data saved on my phone. I showed him the screen, and his face turned pale. When did you? Suddenly, my in-laws stepped in front of Ken, and my mother-in-law slapped him. What are you doing? Betraying Julie and Mina and having an affair. You disgrace! The in-laws scolded him while he stood there in shock. The funeral attendees looked at him coldly. My in-laws apologized to my mom and me. Then took Ken away. Afterward, I contacted a lawyer, demanded a divorce from Ken, and filed for alimony and child support. Ken ended up with a substantial debt. I reported everything to his workplace, and he lost his standing there. Now, he's been relegated to another department, treated coldly by his colleagues, and cut off by his in-laws. He lives a lonely life, mostly paying off his debts. Ken's mistress seemed to have treated their affair as just a fling, and she quickly disappeared from his life. Meanwhile, I moved back to my parents' house and now live there with my mom and daughter, Mina. When I discussed my situation with my company, they said the offer to become a full-time employee still stands. If I request it, they're willing to make the switch right away. This should make supporting my daughter no problem at all. I asked Mina how she felt about not seeing her father anymore, and she said it was okay since he was practically non-existent in her life anyway. Even if Ken wants to see Mina, I doubt she'd be interested in meeting him. I plan to continue pouring my love into Mina, spending happy and joyful days with my mom and daughter.